My name is Amelia Carter, I am 34 years old. I was standing in the middle of my former mother-in-law's lavish birthday party when she slowly lifted her glass, looked directly at me, and said with a smirk, "Leaving you was the best decision my son ever made." Every conversation in the room stopped. The soft music continued playing in the background, but somehow it felt distant, almost unreal. More than 40 people were staring at me, waiting to see how I would react. My ex-husband, Daniel, stood beside her with his hands in his pockets, avoiding eye contact as if he had already decided I wasn't worth defending anymore. Then my mother-in-law, Patricia, added another sentence in her calm, elegant voice. "Some women simply aren't meant to build successful families." A few people awkwardly laughed. Someone coughed. Someone looked away. And for a brief moment, it felt like time itself had frozen. What none of them knew was that within the next 5 minutes, something was about to happen that would wipe that smile off Patricia's face forever. 3 years earlier, I had walked away from a 12-year marriage with almost nothing except my dignity. At least, that's what everyone thought. According to Daniel's family, I was the failure. I was the woman who couldn't keep her husband happy. The woman who wasn't ambitious enough. The woman who supposedly held Daniel back from becoming the successful businessman he deserved to be. Nobody bothered to ask for my side of the story. Because the truth wasn't nearly as convenient as the lie they had created. For years, I had sacrificed everything for that family. I worked 2 jobs while Daniel built his company. I canceled opportunities, postponed my own dreams, and stood beside him through every financial crisis. But the moment his business became profitable, something changed inside him. Or maybe it had always been there. Patricia certainly encouraged it. She had never liked me. From the day Daniel introduced me to her, she made sure I understood my place. Every compliment came with an insult hidden underneath. Every family dinner was another test I could never pass. I wasn't sophisticated enough. I wasn't wealthy enough. I wasn't impressive enough. Eventually, Daniel started repeating her words. Then one day, he simply left. No argument. No warning. No fight. He sat across from me at our kitchen table and said, "I think my life will be better without you." Just like that. 12 years reduced to a single sentence. And somehow, his entire family celebrated it. Which was exactly why seeing me at Patricia's birthday party tonight confused everyone. I wasn't invited. I wasn't supposed to be here. Yet there I was, wearing a simple navy blue dress, standing perfectly calm while they all waited for me to break. But I didn't. Because I hadn't come to defend myself. I hadn't come to beg for respect. I hadn't come for Daniel at all. I came because someone else had personally asked me to be here. And judging by the sudden vibration of my phone inside my purse, that person had just arrived. Before I could even reach for it, the grand entrance doors slowly opened. And the moment Patricia saw who had walked in, the color completely disappeared from her face. If you're enjoying this emotional family story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because what happens next will completely change everything her ex-husband and mother-in-law thought they knew about her. The grand entrance doors slowly opened, and every head in the room turned toward them at the same time. A tall man in a dark gray suit stepped inside, carrying himself with the kind of quiet confidence that immediately commanded attention without demanding it. Patricia's hand, which had been wrapped around her glass moments earlier, suddenly began to tremble. It was Victor Hayes. Most people in the room knew exactly who he was. A respected investor, philanthropist, and one of the most influential figures in the city. Daniel certainly knew him. After all, Daniel had spent the last 2 years desperately trying to get his company noticed by Victor's investment group. Victor's eyes scanned the room for only a second before landing directly on me. Then he smiled. Not the polite smile people use with acquaintances, but the genuine smile someone gives to a person they deeply respect. He walked straight toward me and said, "Amelia, I hope I didn't keep you waiting." For a moment, nobody spoke. Daniel looked completely confused. Patricia blinked several times as if her mind refused to process what she was seeing. I simply smiled back. "Not at all." Victor then turned toward Patricia and said politely, "Thank you for allowing Amelia to attend tonight. We have an important announcement to make." The silence that followed was heavier than before. Patricia quickly forced a smile onto her face. "Of course. Although I'm not sure what Amelia could possibly have to announce." I noticed several people exchange glances. There it was again. That same arrogance. That same certainty that she knew exactly who I was. The problem was that Patricia had spent so many years underestimating me that she never considered one possibility. People change. Especially after they stop living for everyone else. The divorce had broken me at first. There was no point pretending otherwise. I cried for months. I questioned my worth. I blamed myself for the collapse of a marriage I had spent over a decade trying to protect. Then one day, something inside me shifted. I realized I had been surviving instead of living. For 12 years, I had invested all my energy into building someone else's future while completely abandoning my own. So I started over. Quietly. Without announcing anything. Without proving anything to anyone. I enrolled in business programs, reconnected with old contacts, and began working on ideas I had once buried beneath endless responsibilities. That was when I met Victor. He wasn't looking for someone with status. He was looking for someone with vision. And for the first time in years, someone saw my potential before I even fully believed in it myself. Meanwhile, Daniel remained convinced that my life had fallen apart without him. His family believed it too. That was why Patricia had felt comfortable humiliating me tonight. In her mind, she was speaking to a defeated woman. She had no idea she was speaking to someone she would soon need. Victor calmly placed a folder onto a nearby table. Daniel's eyes immediately narrowed. "What's that?" he asked. Victor looked at him for a moment before answering. "The future." A few people softly laughed, assuming he was joking. He wasn't. I watched Patricia straighten her shoulders as anxiety slowly replaced her confidence. Because for the first time all evening, she wasn't controlling the room anymore. And then Victor said a sentence that made Daniel's face instantly lose color. "Before tonight ends, everyone here deserves to know who Amelia Carter really is." And suddenly, I realized the biggest secret of all was finally about to come into the open. The room remained completely silent after Victor's words. I could see the confusion spreading across people's faces as they tried to understand why a man of his status was standing beside me. Patricia's confident posture was beginning to disappear, replaced by a nervousness she was desperately trying to hide. Daniel stepped forward first. "Who exactly do you think you are?" he asked Victor, trying to sound calm. Victor didn't react emotionally. He simply looked at him and said, "I'm someone who recognizes talent when I see it." Then he turned toward me. "Amelia, would you like to tell them, or should I?" I took a slow breath. For years, I had imagined this moment differently. I thought I'd feel anger. I thought I'd want revenge. I thought humiliating them would somehow heal all the pain they had caused me. But standing there now, I realized something important. I wasn't here to destroy them. I was here to finally stop shrinking myself for people who never deserved my sacrifices. I looked directly at Daniel. "You remember all those business plans I used to create?" His expression changed immediately. Of course he remembered. He had spent years dismissing them. "You always said they were unrealistic," I continued. "You said nobody would ever invest in my ideas." Nobody in the room moved. Daniel crossed his arms. "What's your point?" I smiled softly. "My point is that somebody did." Victor opened the folder and carefully placed several documents on the table. The fastest-growing consulting company in our region was founded by Amelia Carter 2 years ago, he said. She currently owns the majority stake and serves as its CEO. The room exploded into whispers. Several people gasped. Daniel stared at me in disbelief. Patricia's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. I could almost see her mind trying to rearrange everything she believed about me. The woman she had spent years mocking. The woman she called a burden. The woman she said wasn't successful enough. That woman was now leading a company larger than Daniel's. But the biggest shock wasn't even that. Victor continued speaking. Over the past 6 months, Amelia's company has been negotiating a major acquisition. Daniel suddenly looked uneasy. Because he knew exactly which acquisition he was trying to secure. His company needed investors. Without them, his business would struggle to survive another year. I watched him slowly put the pieces together. Then his eyes widened. No, he whispered. Victor nodded. Yes. The entire room turned toward Daniel. Patricia grabbed the edge of the table. That's impossible, she said. Victor calmly replied, actually, it's already done. I stood there quietly because this wasn't a secret anymore. For months, my company had been evaluating Daniel's struggling business. Every report, every financial statement, every negotiation had eventually landed on my desk. And I had known exactly whose company it was from the very beginning. But I never said a word. Patricia looked at me as if she were seeing a stranger. Why didn't you tell us? She asked. I looked at her for several seconds before answering. Because for years, none of you ever bothered to ask who I really was. Once again, silence filled the room. Then Daniel suddenly said something that made my stomach tighten. You did all of this for revenge, didn't you? I looked at him carefully. Because he still didn't understand me at all. And what I was about to reveal next would completely change everything they thought they knew about our divorce. Daniel's question hung in the air for several seconds. You did all of this for revenge, didn't you? For a moment, nobody moved. Every eye in the room shifted between us, waiting for my answer. I looked at the man I had once loved more than anyone in the world and realized something that should have been obvious years ago. He had never truly known me. Because if he had, he would have known that revenge was never my goal. I slowly shook my head. No, Daniel. I did all of this because one day I finally realized my life didn't belong to you. The room remained silent. I continued calmly. For 12 years, I built your dreams while abandoning my own. Then you left, and for the first time in my life, I started building something for myself. Daniel looked away. Patricia seemed unable to speak. I could see regret beginning to appear on both their faces, but strangely, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt peace. The kind of peace that only comes when you stop fighting for people's approval. Victor stepped forward again. There's one more thing everyone should know. He picked up another document from the folder. Amelia had every legal right to reject the acquisition and allow Daniel's company to collapse. Several people exchanged shocked glances. Daniel stared at me. But she didn't. I could hear the disbelief in the room. Victor looked directly at Patricia. Despite everything your family did to her, she chose professionalism over resentment. Patricia lowered her eyes. For the first time since I had known her, she looked small. Not because she had lost power, but because she had finally been forced to confront the consequences of her own behavior. Then she quietly said, I was wrong about you. Years ago, I would have waited my entire life to hear those words. Tonight, they didn't change anything. Because healing had already happened long before this party. I wasn't standing there hoping for an apology anymore. I had already moved on. I looked at Patricia and answered honestly. It took me a long time to understand this, but your opinion was never my identity. A few people lowered their heads. Daniel looked devastated. Then he said something I never expected. I'm sorry. I stared at him for a moment. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he didn't. But it no longer mattered. Some apologies arrive after the damage is already done. And sometimes forgiveness isn't about rebuilding a relationship. It's about freeing yourself from carrying the weight of someone else's choices. I picked up my purse and turned toward the exit. Victor walked beside me. As we reached the doors, I heard Patricia call my name. I turned around one final time. Her eyes were full of regret. Then she said, I wish we had treated you differently. I smiled politely. That's the thing about life, Patricia. By the time people finally recognize someone's worth, that person has usually learned they don't need their approval anymore. Then I walked away. Not as Daniel's ex-wife. Not as Patricia's former daughter-in-law. But as Amelia Carter. A woman who stopped asking for a seat at someone else's table and built one of her own. And that was the day my mother-in-law Smirked disappeared forever.